Hey everybody, how's it going? Aaron Rift here, along with good old JM Jeff Meacham. How you doing today, Mr. Meacham?
I'm doing Mr. Meacham. Wow, I feel special.
Well, you are part of the No D crew, so
the No D crew, is that what we're called now?
So got to give you some respect.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's always good to be here at NoDQ.com, where it all began for me.
Anyways, we are here today to talk about the top WWE mistakes that need to be erased from history. So we're going to be very critical of the WWE product on this video.
We actually might get some decent hits, decent reviews for this one.
Yeah, everyone's going to be agreeing with us for the most part, I think.
You know. But before we even jump onto the negative that it's WWE's fault, I do have to point out that, you know, they do need to be better about, right off the top of the bat, health consciousness back in the day.
Yeah.
Because if they had been more aware of what was going on with people like Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit, then he wouldn't be blackballed and Eddie wouldn't be where he is. So, granted, Eddie's demons were his own demons.
Yeah. But
Benoit could have been prevented if they just taken a little more taps to keep a rein on him better.
But at least they have worked on their mistakes. That's the positive.
Well, the mistake now is erasing him from history. Granted, he did a terrible thing, the person did a horrible thing, but the in-ring wrestler that is still on the network to this day, that you have to skip through on the things to find him, it's like, it bugs me, but anyway, go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, and it is difficult to criticize a highly successful company. I mean, for all the things that they've done wrong, they're still in business, they're still packing arenas around the world. They're still very successful with the WWE Network.
Yep.
WrestleMania broke records this year. So they're doing a lot of things right, but there are some mistakes they made, things that perhaps should have been done differently or maybe not even done at all. Let's start off, you mentioned this a moment ago, the WBF.
Oh, God, yes. Okay. I understand, Mr. McMahon, sir, that a lot of potential bodybuilders, your son-in-law, for example, go into the business and want to aspire to be wrestlers. But it doesn't mean you can put storylines into bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is very simple. You go on stage, flex your muscles, flex your muscles.
What muscles, Jim?
No muscles. Just go with me here. And you walk away. I had a friend who did a fitness competition last year who worked her butt off for months and months and months to get it, and she looked tremendous when she got on stage finally. But at no time did I feel the need to have her be attacked by one of her competitors on stage or backstage in the locker room area. It's like, no, it's bodybuilding.
Yeah, do we really need soap opera storylines for
bodybuilding? I don't know. It's retarded.
Yeah, and that's the thing with WWE. They are great at the sports entertainment wrestling business. When Vince tried to go into outside ventures, it just didn't work.
Yep.
You need to stick to what you're good at.
You mentioned the WBF. How about the XFL?
Say it like Vince.
This is the XFL.
Yeah, the way I saw the XFL was it was too much wrestling for football fans and too much football for wrestling fans.
Yeah, I mean, if you get a little more classy cheerleaders, for one thing, they were a little risque, shall we say. And Joey Styles said it best on the McMahon TV. I don't know if you have that or not. The opening thing you saw at an XFL game was The Rock. The first person on the field for an XFL game was Vince McMahon. Yeah. In an XFL varsity jacket like he was the man. It was like, oh, yeah. God. It was awful.
The problem with XFL and WBF is you were spending money on things outside of your core business, and it definitely hurt the morale because you have the guys that are in the WWE and you're taking money that could be going to them and their projects and putting it into failed projects. And
now, granted, the WBF didn't cost them a whole shit ton of money, thankfully.
But it did also cause Vince to not focus on his core business, and business from a creative standpoint took a hit.
It did.
During those periods.
It did, but the XFL cost them and NBC millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars. Anyways, let's move on here. Speaking of 2001 with the XFL, I was talking about how they made a lot of creative mistakes in 2001, perhaps because Vince's eyes were off the ball, not the XFL ball, but the WWE ball. WrestleMania 17, I've talked about this in other videos. Steve Austin turning heel. Yes, it was shocking. Yes, it was a big moment in WrestleMania history, but was it good for business? No, it wasn't. You look at the ratings tumbled after Austin's heel turn, and nobody wanted to see Steve Austin as a heel. That's the bottom line, as Steve Austin would say. Right. And Jim Ross put it best himself. It's like John Wayne running away from a fight. That's not the Stone Cold character we all came to know and love. And it was just not good for their business.
And I dare say he was never the same after that.
Never.
Granted, he got what because of being a heel.
Yeah.
Other than that, Stone Cold was never the same after that heel turn, that botched heel turn at WrestleMania 17, and even the further botching of it by going against the WWF to two companies that he had already left.
Yeah.
The Alliance.
WCW. That made no sense. Especially WCW.
Booking in 2001 made very little sense post WrestleMania. Let's be honest. You mentioned 2001 creative with Austin. Austin himself has said if he had to go back, he'd have dropped Vince on his head.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Yeah. Vince not listening to his audience, because when they teased, remember on the Raw before Invasion, Austin came out and sided with Team WWF, and the crowd was just going nuts for it.
They were.
And then what do? They turn him heel at the pay-per-view.
At Sunday, yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, the whole, you talk about the creative standpoint from Austin, the creative thing in general with the Invasion.
Yeah, we could spend all day talking about the Invasion mistakes.
And literally, this is one of those things where literally, Vince, they talked about not having enough money to bring in Steiner and Goldberg and Flair. Where was that freaking $100 million surplus they had from making all the money the previous year?
Yeah, they could have used the XFL money and brought in Goldberg.
Brought in the WCW talents to fight the WWF in the first place.
And then you have DDP losing to Undertaker's wife.
Yeah, DDP and Undertaker in a match that wasn't even a match at the King of the Ring. Remember that?
Yeah.
It was a confrontation. Undertaker just whooped the shit out of him.
Yeah, I mean, when that happened, I'm like, okay, this Invasion is not going to go over well.
When the main event for the first time for WCW defending the world title on Raw is Booker T against Buff Bagwell, and I love Marcus. I do. We all know I love Buff Bagwell to pieces. But my God, that was horrible booking, horrible production value. It was WWF booking WCW, but it looked like WCW booking WCW.
Yeah.
It was awful. The whole Invasion thing was just one big cluster.
Yeah, and they finally brought in Goldberg a year later.
Yeah.
And then they didn't know what to do with him either. And the thing that really bugged me was the SummerSlam match, the Elimination Chamber. Goldberg was so over in that match. When he finally got unleashed from his pod, the crowd was just going nuts. It was like the old Goldberg from WCW at his peak. He came in there, he was destroying everybody, and then bam, one sledgehammer shot.
Evolution just nails it, and that was it. Yeah.
And then that's it. And just like that, all the momentum is just sucked out of Goldberg, and he was never the same after that.
Nope. All it takes in wrestling is one moment.
Yeah, they did the same thing similar with Ryback. They booked themselves into a corner. Ryback was getting really hot. And for whatever reason, I think Cena was hurt, right? Was that the story? Or that wasn't a storyline. He was actually
really hurt.
They put Ryback versus CM Punk in the Hell in the Cell match when they didn't want CM Punk losing the title because they were building him up for The Rock. But at the same time, you don't want to have Ryback lose with all of his momentum. And it was a mistake to book that match. They shouldn't have done it because it hurt Ryback's momentum losing that match.
And then they ended up having to use the Shield of Brad Maddox to get out of that storyline in the first place. It was awful. But we talked about bad booking decisions and bad storyline decisions involving the World Championship. Triple H, Kane, and Katie Vick.
That's all you gotta say.
That's all I gotta say.
I mean,
the only person in this world, and there are 6 billion people on this damn planet, Aaron, one person liked that storyline. That was Vince.
Yeah.
And granted, he's the boss, so he can. But nobody else liked it. Even Hunter was like, really? Yeah. Okay, I guess.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
You know what's interesting about that? I actually remember people telling me back at the time that they were no longer going to watch wrestling because of that. And maybe a few did, but oddly enough, that motivated you and Mike to get together and start a little audio show called
audio
Extreme
show,
Mayhem
yeah,
to complain about it.
Yeah, October 25th, 2002, after No Mercy was over, we took to the air for the first time.
And Mike's
history.
Mike going on a rant about how it was probably the worst Raw ever.
That was bad. It was a very horrible Raw. And you know what? It's funny how necessity breeds content. Necessity breeds creativity.
Yeah.
Because think about it. That happened. We did Extreme Mayhem. Unfortunately for the world, the Chris Benoit thing happened. And I sat. I don't know if it was this table, but Talk Wrestling was born.
Yeah.
So you know.
Weird how these things work out.
It is. It's weird.
I want to talk about some bad decisions regarding the world title. You know, we mentioned a few things here. I want to talk about Jack Swagger winning Money in the Bank because it really did nothing for the world title, and he won it, and then he never won any matches. It was basically like a mid-carder winning the world title. To me, it really devalued the title, Swagger's reign as the world champion.
I absolutely agree, and unfortunately, had they booked that better, that period between WrestleMania and Money, Fatal 4-Way, it would have been better for Swagger, better for the company. But again, I said this from the beginning. The big gold belt, the World Heavyweight Championship as it was back then, was always the secondary world title. They didn't care what happened to that belt.
Yeah.
That's why Jeff Hardy got it. That's why CM Punk got it at first. That's why Jack Swagger got it. That's why Rey Mysterio got it.
Yeah.
Because nobody cared about that belt. And Swagger winning Money in the Bank was good booking. Because Swagger had a lot of potential. Swagger winning the world title was good booking. Had a lot of potential. But the minute he won the title...
But at the end of the day, it just watered down both the Money in the Bank and the World Heavyweight title.
Right,
in my
exactly.
opinion. And, you know, speaking of watering down things, just in general, doing the themed pay-per-views, I haven't been a big fan of at all because it waters down the stipulations. You know, before you'd have Elimination Chamber taking place as a solution to something. You have a conflict, and in the storyline, you come up with Elimination Chamber to solve that conflict. Same thing with Hell in the Cell. There's a good reason to do it. You know, with Shawn Michaels and Undertaker, the very first one, you know, they had a match at the previous pay-per-view that went out of control. So in order to resolve that, they came up with Hell in the Cell. And with the theme pay-per-views, you lose that. That, you know, you just have these stipulation matches for no reason, no good storyline reason.
Yeah, you know, the cage has always been a solution to a problem. The cell has always been a solution to a problem. The chamber, the same way. Any kind of stipulation, I quit match, last man standing match, anything. The thing is, I noticed last year, I was watching the pay-per-view, I told you last show, I was watching Payback a couple weeks ago. Last man standing between Cena and Bray Wyatt was after a cage match, was after a one-on-one match. Okay, you have a one-on-one match, and there's interference. So you have a cage match to resolve it, and then the heel wins, so it doesn't work. So let's have the last man standing where everybody can interfere, but it's all against the rules.
It's just
it makes no friggin' sense.
No rhyme or reason for the stipulation matches.
And that's the problem. Stipulations have become just shock TV again.
Yeah.
There's no rhyme or reason to any of it. It's terrible.
Yeah, so I wish if they could erase something from history, erase the idea to come up with those
stipulation pay-per-views. Yeah. The only reason I'm glad the Hell in a Cell is at least once a year is because it's going to come to Staples Center. I haven't seen the Cell in person yet, so I want to see it.
Yeah, and there's one more mistake in my opinion, and that's from this year at WrestleMania, and that is Sting losing to Triple H in his first match. To me, that was not the right decision. And we had talked about this in a previous video.
We did.
As soon as Triple H beat Sting, the crowd was hot for the whole match. But as soon as Triple H beat Sting, like the whole place just went silent.
You hear the air sucked out of the place.
Yeah, it did not feel right.
It didn't.
And yes, Sting winning would have been predictable, but that's the feel-good moment. You want to see Sting come in and have his big moment in a WWE ring, not lose his first match in.
Right.
It was WWE, ego-driven, them saying, hey, look, WWE was superior to WCW, and they had to prove it one more time and shove it into everybody's faces by having Triple H beat Sting.
Exactly.
So I thought that was a mistake. And
I will even grant you one before that. It's to tie in with the Sting thing is having the Undertaker lose the streak.
Well, that is definitely something that people will be debating for years and years to come. Was that a mistake? Was that the right decision?
And based on the booking of Brock Lesnar since, no, it wasn't a mistake. But from a personal fan standpoint, if I'm an Undertaker fan, I don't want to see this happen. I want the match between Undertaker and Sting, if it happens, to mean something. Big mistake.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if it's a mistake for Undertaker to be coming back and doing more matches after the streak is over. I mean, Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt I thought was a decent match, but to me, something about it just didn't feel right. Him coming back after losing and continuing to have WrestleMania matches.
Well, the fact that they built it so, and the fact that they had that WWE 24 special talking about after WrestleMania, the aftermath, and he collapsed backstage, and you saw Vince scream for help. It was like, that should have been his exit. And yeah, it's a horrible exit to go out on. But, you know, there's some things you just can't write. You just have to just go with.
Yeah, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Exactly.
All right, so that'll wrap it up for our thoughts on the biggest WWE mistakes that should be erased from history.
Yes.
But then again, if you change one moment of history, it could change the entire universe.
Much like Doc Brown taught us.
Yeah.
One change can have a ripple in the space-time continuum.
There you go.
So
Back
you
to the
never
Future reference here
absolutely.
On NoDQ.com.
Yeah, they're wrestling fans. I know they are.
So that'll wrap it up for the video. Thank you guys for watching. Leave your comments. Let us know what you think. The biggest mistakes in WWE history, and stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest in WWE and the world of professional wrestling. See you next time.